He has confirmed that, I'm told. Okay, so I'm going to go to Councillor Campbell for her question.
Thank you, Barry. It's just to say thank you to Liz for her presentation. And I would just like to say, you know, we've got to get behind the hospital staff, the doctors, nurses, and our staff. It will be a difficult time in the next few months. We can play our part by adhering to the rules as best that we possibly can. I would like to say also that it's welcome that we have a testing site in Blythe and one in Ashington, which, you know, we don't have many good things happening in Blythe, but I think people in their circumstances will look upon the testing site as being something which is beneficial to everybody. I'm quite sure there are parts of the country which would love to have 2 testing sites in close proximity. So just to wish everybody well and work alongside the rules, and if we do, maybe we'll come out of this better at the end of it, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Heppel.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to echo and add my voice to the request to have a testing facility in Cramlington. As you can see from the figures, the numbers in Cramlington Village, I saw Village, I think, as being a particular problem. In relation to the information going out to the public, I think one of the problems is there's a bit of a confusion. Some of the confusing questions I'm getting or from my constituents is the difference between the local and the national lockdown, and you know, which one to follow all of them. I'm not sure about that one. Maybe Liz could help on that one. But I think officers in this authority in many ways have led the way in their response to COVID. One example being, I think, with the help of the former, the chief executive who's on extended leave, slip of the tongue there, sorry. She was quite active in this in terms of her experience both in local government and in the health service as well. And that was quite a useful combination. But she did actually not allow patients being discharged from hospital who had COVID symptoms in the care homes. I just wondered if that kind of cautious approach was going to continue. And the final point, I think, is that in terms of the information, the confusion out there, people not getting the messages, some councillors have made the point there, is that in terms of getting the messages out, I think we need to be a bit more hard-hitting with this one and a bit more. I mean, statistics are fine, I've lived with them all my life, but not a lot of people can understand them. So I think some kind of hard-hitting bullet points, and perhaps as well, people with some stories from people who've actually had COVID and experienced it, actually getting those kind of messages out to the public as well. They tend to be more hard-hitting. I don't know if that's something we thought about. But again, Liz, thanks for all the work you and others have done in relation to this situation. Thank you very much.
Liz, do you want to come on that?
Yeah, so in response to the confusion within the public, frankly, I'm not surprised that the public is confused. Clearly we have 2 sets of restrictions. We have the set of restrictions which have been put in place by and on behalf of the North East. Some of those now overlap with the national restrictions. I think the advice will be to adopt the restrictions which are the most restrictive. That's probably the safest way to approach them. But I absolutely understand that people are confused, and we need to make sure that the messages that we put out are as clear as possible in terms of what our expectations are of the public, because I think, as I've said before, the only thing which is standing between us and a much more restrictive imposition is the way that we behave over the next few weeks and months. In terms of discharges into care homes, we work really closely with Northumbria Trust and the CCG, and I know that there are conversations ongoing to make sure that we do support care homes as much as possible, and that we endeavour not to discharge individuals who are COVID positive into care homes if that's at all possible.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I've got a few questions left. I would welcome members to be brief if possible with their questions, because I want to get everyone in. So I'm going to ask for my next trio of Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Swinburne and Councillor Dale. So can I ask Councillor Dickinson to ask his question?
Thank you, Chair. I won't take offence. I'll get in this time. Liz, thank you very much for all the work that everybody's doing. I do echo the points made around the initial approach to wave one, as it were, in Northumberland. I think the council took a very pragmatic approach in terms of services, protecting the workforce, protecting communities, setting up the community hub, all really good work. I also echo the comments made by Councillor Heppel around Daljit Lally and Stephen Holmes providing fantastic leadership around our care homes and giving that real confidence to the public and residents and families who have people in care homes. I am concerned that the communications, although Anne Bridges and her team have done a fantastic job up till now trying to differentiate between local and national lockdown, we are persistently telling people what they can't do. And I think that always provides some kind of negative reaction. I'd really much prefer some of the detailed facts that Liz has provided today. And we've had this debate on email between members about what's confidential and what's not, because actually some of those figures show Northumberland to be increasing rates far higher than other places in the country. It was reported in The Guardian, but we haven't reported it locally. We haven't done any work locally on those kind of facts on the council social media. I think people react very differently when they can see the facts. And I think we need to encourage people to play their bit, do their part to protect other people, but we need to provide facts. People won't just do as they're asked to do without being given the facts, and that would be my only plea. But thank you very much, Liz, and thank you to the officers for restoring some confidence in what is a council that's got some confidence issues at the moment. So thank you very much.
Okay, does Liz want to come in there?
Just to say that the dashboard, which I showed you earlier, is on the council website, and we will make sure that all elected members are sent a link to that.
Brilliant. Oh, and Liz, I forgot to ask, sorry, Chair, that are the information briefings that were labelled confidential still coming as confidential, or can we share some of that information with our residents? Sorry, Chair, I forgot to ask that.
Okay.
It's probably, I can't remember what's in there, to be honest, but it's probably safer to share the website, the public dashboard that's on the website.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Liz, for this information. As ever, it is very insightful, the information that you pass on to us. It comes down to, as many people have already have mentioned, the level of communication. For example, the initial information that was passed on about Northumberland having very low rates was correct, but the level of increasing cases, residents weren't exactly understanding how that was expanding on those level of cases. But when they were shown the two maps that we received on the initial case numbers and then how it was expanding, people started to suddenly realise, and it started to hit home, how these numbers were starting to expand and increase across Northumberland. And the penny started to drop with the number of people. So the information that we've seen again today to see that expand even further and those numbers increase more, and as you said, it's on the website, goes further to reimburse that. What isn't helpful, and I received a number of queries about this yesterday across Cramlington, and obviously it's disappointing to see that my own ward, Cramlington Village, is third highest on the list there. But what isn't helpful is you're probably aware of a huge illuminated red trailer which has gone around not only Cramlington but a lot of southeast Northumberland, which states coronavirus, this is a high risk area. This has set panic among residents. It's very distracting when they're driving around. It's parking up in various areas. It's been seen in Cramlington, New Biggin, a lot of southeast Northumberland. I understand it's been seen in Whitley Bay today. It's not being done locally by our council, I understand, nor the CCG or local NHS. And I know we've got to get the message out there and people have got to understand, and we're working hard with our comms team to do that. The result of seeing this massive trailer driving around is panicking people. And what is happening now is we're seeing panic buying in the shops, as we were seeing earlier on this year. And we need to get the message across to residents that please don't do the panic buying yet again. It's not necessary. And I don't know whether we can get anything in with comms to get along those lines as well to stop the panic buying, because we'll end up back in a situation where we're a few months ago, where stuff will start getting restricted down to 2 or 3 items. But I don't know whether anyone, such as yourself, was aware of this big trail going around, whether there was any communication given to yourself or anyone else at the council on that. But it comes down to the comms again, getting the right people and the right message out there. And I don't know, I'll ask the question, do you think this big trailer is the right thing to be getting around? We've got to get the message out there, but is that really the right thing that we should be doing? Or that, I'm not saying that should be done.
I don't know is the answer, but actually, if it's provoking panic, then we probably need to think of some other mechanism to get that message across. But I'll obviously be having having a long conversation with the comms team, because you've collectively come up with some really good ideas around comms and our future approach. So I will bring that into the conversation, if that's okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Dale. You're on mute, Councillor Dale.
Is that all right now?
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to go back on what Councillor Daly said, if you could look at the F40 letter that's been sent to the Department of Education, it will actually show all the needs that the schools have, and they're quite substantial. And I know certainly in the area is small schools are finding it very difficult to manage because of just the testing takes time to come back, etc. So just if you can keep that in mind. The second one is about the testing sites. Northumberland's enormous, as you know, but it goes all the way up to the borders of Scotland, but it also goes across to Cumbria, and it also goes down to Durham. And I know I've had problems with people who've had to get tested. They've actually been told to go to Edinburgh when they found they could have gone south, actually somewhere else. So when you're actually considering the whole area of the testing area, I presume that we don't have to stay in the Northumberland area to get tested if we live 2 minutes down the road from, say, Durham, or 2 minutes up the road to Edinburgh or whatever. But if that could be made people aware of that. The other thing about this comms is always difficult, because certainly in our area, a lot of older people in the rural area as well. Not a lot of them get newspapers. Some of them haven't got super fast broadband. Some of them aren't on the internet, etc., etc. And actually, when it comes down to people working with people, it's generally their local councillor who actually knows them and has ways of getting the information out. And if you used each different councillor, certainly in the rural areas, I think that would be beneficial to everybody. Certainly we have a very clear way of getting things out, messages out to everybody, and everybody works consistently together. You will have within your community hub contact list those people who are looking at and developing, who are working as volunteers in certain areas, and the county councillors will know those people as well, or be working with them. And I think that's a really good way of getting out, especially if there's a high risk, if one area in particular is becoming high risk. I do know that yesterday the wagon was going around with the NHS sign on saying alert your risk around Predo, and that people came to me about that. But I gather it obviously from everybody, it was everywhere else. But just to say thank you once again. But the comms thing's always difficult, because people just don't have the type of comms which we think everybody has. Nobody's on, people aren't on Facebook, people aren't on the internet, people don't get on every day, and they only use a newspaper once a week. So it is quite difficult. So they do watch the television, but that's not local.
Okay, Liz, do you want to come on that?
Well, I can probably answer some of the questions about testing and availability. So the availability of testing is really set nationally.
Yeah.
My understanding is that testing slots are released at about 10 o'clock in the morning for the afternoon, and between 6 and 7 o'clock in the evening for the following morning. And they will automatically direct you to whichever is the nearest testing site. And that will also take into consideration whether a mobile testing unit is scheduled to be in that particular area in the sort of following 24 hours or so. But I think what's been happening, and it sort of goes back to the issue about testing capacity, is that because the testing capacity is being diverted elsewhere, the number of testing slots that are available for locally for people in the northeast is clearly inadequate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, I'm going to come to my final, and it's going to be 4 rather than 3, and then we'll draw this to a close. I'm going to ask Councillor Grimshaw, Councillor Foster, Councillor Quinn and Councillor Castle, and I'll draw this to a close. So Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Well, actually, there's a lot of the questions that I was going to ask been answered. Once again, Liz, thank you and your team because you're doing a fantastic job, and hats off to you. We're really appreciated. I'm sure throughout the community, as well as Councillor Daly touched on the schools, as well as Councillor Dale and Councillor Dunworth. That has been a major issue. Not only that, I know some of the schools is now having to take out of their budget to provide children who are having to go to home to learn and having to purchase laptops or tablets out of their budgets, which are stretched to capacity anyway. So I just wondered, if we could, maybe Councillor Sanderson could lobby the government to see if we could get some more resources into the fact that schools are stretched and out of their budget, having to provide these tools for the children to be able to homeschool is vital. And the other thing is, Liz, if you don't mind, I just wondered if you could, perhaps not today, give an update about the community hub and how that's still going and how we could move forward with the volunteers, because especially looking at the figures in Northumberland and especially around the southeast is really frightening. And I think that perhaps we could kind of look at that again to see how we can all help and assist with that, getting that up and running again and contact people who are vulnerable and isolating, etc. Because I think a phone call means a lot to some of these people, like they did before, and were contacting people. It's a lifeline. So I think if we could get some information of how we can move forward as far as the community hubs and volunteers are concerned, I'll be very grateful, Liz. But thank you once again to you and your team. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you. The community hub has obviously continued to operate during the whole of this period, even during the period when our rates weren't as high as they are now. I think we are very conscious that there are people who are going to be required to self-isolate who will find that a real challenge from both a financial, practical and social point of view. We just want to put the message out there that the community hub is there to support those individuals as well, not just all of those individuals who were previously required to self-isolate because they were vulnerable. But we will make sure that an update on the community hub is provided to elected members.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'd like to echo the sentiments said by many of my colleagues here to thank you, Liz, your team, and anyone else that's been involved in the work that you're all doing. And again, thank you for that dashboard. I think that's very, very informative. It's going to be really, really useful. My concern, again, is being raised by a lot of people, communications and getting the message out there. It's just flashed up on my phone, highest daily rate since May the 1st today, 6,178 new cases. But the apathy I'm seeing on social media is unreal. There are a lot of people who understand the restrictions, support the restrictions, and who are going to abide by the restrictions. But the amount of people who are going the other way is quite frightening, frankly, when we've actually got this increase already. And that sort of behaviour you worry that that is going to contribute to higher numbers again. And just one thing came up over the last few days. We had a restaurant advertising it's okay to come with other households. Maximum is 6 people, but it's okay to mix households. But that's after we've had the message going out there that you can't have mixed households in a private home and garden. And most restaurants and pubs are working to the spirit of those regulations and not accepting groups from mixed households. But then you get some where they're saying, we've spoken to county have said it's fine, the regulations allow it. And when you have a look at the gov.uk website, it basically has the wording, we advise that you should not. So their wording is advise, and obviously for the mixing of households in private homes is you must not. And it's sending such mixed messages out to the public. It's confusing for the public. The public feel they don't know exactly what the regulations are because one person's interpreting them one way, another person's interpreting them another way. And I just think we really need to be on top of the communications aspect, get the real message out there and get the message out. Yeah, maybe it is advised, but if you really want to combat this awful virus, you want to get the figures down, then we need to work in the spirit of these tighter regulations. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. You know, it's unfortunate that we've got that we've had to put in a distinction between the legislation, which is clearly what people have to do, and guidance, which is what we're asking people that, that they should do. And although in the, the North, when you read the Northeast restrictions information, which is on the government website, it does talk about the expectations in terms of businesses making sure that people who are using their, particularly hospitality businesses, are from the same household. I think, the way that is being put in practice is quite variable. And I know that we have seen, quite a bit on social media from some hospitality venues that, when you read it, it looks as though it's encouraging you to not to follow that guidance. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to be quite blunt going forward in the way that we communicate to the public and just make it clear that, while it is guidance for everybody's benefit, we need people to follow that guidance as though it was the law.
Okay. Councillor Quinn.
Yes, hello, thank you. Comms again, I'm afraid. Like everybody else, I had a number of emails when we first announced the Northeast restrictions saying this is absolutely ridiculous. We don't have a problem in Northumberland. It's all the fault of everybody else. So I agree with Councillor Dickinson that it's important that we do get the figures out there and we do make it clear to people that the figures are rising quickly. Equally, I've had contact from some of the older people in my ward who did isolate during the first period. I've had people in tears and they are terrified and they are so upset at the thought that it was one thing in spring when it was sunny and when the nights were bright, but this is going to be winter, the nights are drawing in. They are really scared, they are very frightened, and it's that balancing act that has to be kept between making people very clear that we are up against something serious, but equally not frightening people to death, which is the thing that I am worried about in some areas. And another just short thing, it's my eyes probably, but I couldn't read the dashboard before because the print was very small. Is there a ward by ward breakdown there? Because people are starting to talk in my villages, oh, they've got it, they've got it, they've got it. And St. accurate data.
Councillor Quinn, you're breaking up, so I think we've
what is
got.
actually happening would be very helpful.
Thank you, Liz.
So I think, you know, the comms message is coming through very clearly, in that we need to, you know, I think we understand the challenges. It is really tricky to get the messages across that we want to get across, in a way which resonates with different communities, different age groups, and, you know, and clearly we need to work harder to get that message across. I completely understand that those individuals who, you know, who fall into that more vulnerable group are anxious and worried at the moment. And I think our advice to them would be to, you know, just to take extra care. Nobody wants those people to, you know, nobody wants that vulnerable group to go back to a place where they're, you know, having to self-isolate at home. That is going to be really bad for their mental health and well-being, and, you know, that's just not sustainable in the long term. But I think as things stand at the moment, you know, all we're asking is for those individuals to, you know, be extra careful about who they socialise with, and just to, you know, adopt all those measures around social distancing, the use of face coverings, and hand washing, etc., etc.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Last question, I think, isn't it, Chair? And thank you, Liz, for your very professional. You must be wilting under the barrage of questions, but you've done very well so far. And this is a genuine question, which I'm asking on behalf of the people that ask me, and I can't give the answer. As I represent Alnwick Ward, which, as you know, has got a relatively light rate of infection, and yet the visitor numbers to this part of Northumberland were in the tens of thousands. And I'm asked, is there an evidential link between the actual rate of infection and the number of visitors that we've had? Because there's been a presumption of that kind, that more and more visitors have actually led to the risk and increased the risk, and yet the evidence doesn't suggest that. They're mostly left now, and the question that I've got is, sorry about kill that. The question I ask is there an evidential link, please, between the actual rate of infection and the huge increase of visitor numbers in the parts that presently don't show any result from that? Thank you.
So I think from our analysis of the data, you know, we might have expected an increase in the number of cases because of tourism, but actually, you know, looking at the individual cases that we've got, we don't really have any evidence that those cases are related to tourism. Most of them are related to households, household mixing and household transmission. And just you know, socializing in younger age groups. I mean, I think we anticipated, or we probably should have anticipated that the release of lockdown, or after the release of lockdown, it was always going to be younger people who went to pubs and restaurants more and socialized more. They generally have more social contacts than older people like myself. So it's probably no surprise actually that it's those younger age groups that are in which we've seen large case rates. But going back to your original question, we really haven't seen any evidence that any of our cases or the increase in cases is related to tourism.
Thank you.
Okay, as Councillor Castle alluded to, we've had a long session on this. I'm going to be super generous and allow Councillor Gallagher to ask a very brief question, and then we're going to move progress.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well done to you and your team and everybody involved with these issues. But very, very quickly, the biggest thing that we've been talking about, or the biggest hurdle, is around communications. And I was just wondering, how do we link up? How does Northumberland County Council link up with the supermarkets? Because everybody now has increased their home delivery, and the vulnerable are even more getting more home deliveries delivered to the house. Is there a way that we work with Asda, Tesco, Morrison's, all the supermarkets that deliver and use the Northumberland hub to a leaflet within that shop and have an update of what we're about around COVID-19? and to reassure and get the message out that way. Because it's been touched on before that a lot of people can't get onto the internet. A lot of people aren't connected through their age. We can't, we can't keep posting the messages out to the rural places. And the other port of call could be petrol stations. That if we had a signage there with a weekly update of the things that Northumberland County Council are doing, it gets a message out to everybody. Thank you, and thank you very much, Chair, for letting me in.
Liz?
Yes, I'm just writing all those down.
I beg your pardon.
They're very good ideas. I mean, I think we have had conversations about, whether we can use community pharmacies, for instance, to push out messages. I think half the challenge is that actually this situation is changing so quickly that they would have to be quite generic messages, because otherwise the information that we would be pushing out would be, out of date almost as soon as we'd sent it out. And certainly that's the feedback that I've had from other areas that have done leaflet drops, is that, by the time the leaflet is written and has gone out, the information, particularly if it involves specific numbers, is quite out of date. But I think supermarket deliveries and petrol stations, I think they do provide a really good opportunity to get messages out there. So we can have a think about how we might utilise those as an asset.
Thank you, Liz. I'm going to draw that to a close, and I say thank you, every member, for your patience in that, and for putting electronic hands, and I'm sure Liz can answer questions, and this is not going to go away anytime soon, certainly. So Liz, I'm sure will be back in due course. And thank you, Liz, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
I'll go to the next point on the agenda, which is point 6, announcements. I just have 2 very quick announcements to make. Sadly, to report the recent death of former County Councillor Wyndham Rogers Coltman, who was the member for Berwick North between 1985 and 1993, and also to report the deaths during lockdown of 2 former mayors of Berwick, Councillor Ivor Dixon and Alderman David Lockie. So I would just pass our best wishes on to friends and family from the County Council in respect of that. Thank you very much, Chair Council. Next, I've got correspondence. I don't have any correspondence to deliver to the council, so I'll move on to questions. Question 1 from Councillor Kennedy to, I've got the acting leader here, but to the leader.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your new post, and congratulations to you, Councillor Sanderson, on becoming the new leader of the council. Okay, so the question is, the previous leader of the council, replying to my question of the 2nd of September on the unnecessary close down of democracy during the pandemic at Northumberland County Council, stated that 84 meetings had been cancelled from a total of 136 between dates in March and August of this year. I'm conscious that there are a number of cancelled meetings in September also, including area committees for Tynedale, Ashington and Blythe, Castle Morpeth, Cramlington, Bedlington and Seaton Valley. Backbench councillors and residents feel excluded from this council and have felt frustrated that a dialogue has not been available to them on matters such as managing the impact of the lockdown and the reopening of our towns, high streets, schools, sporting clubs, etc. Can the leader provide assurances that one of his priorities will be to re-establish democracy into the council, so councillors and officers can start a dialogue with residents on these important matters via their local area committees, including electronic meetings?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Kennedy, for your question, and thank you for your kind words there. One of my priorities and that of the administration is to ease back into a full committee programme. I think September is due to have around 20 meetings. October is currently planned to have more, probably in excess of that. But I know that there is a meeting next Tuesday with the local area chairs, and the intention is very much to get back into the pattern of having regular meetings. I would like to see that, you'd like to see that, and I think we'd all would. So what I would add, though, it is COVID dependent. Obviously, we don't know what things are going to be like, but it's certainly the intention is there, yes.
Thank you, Glenn. That is welcome news. I mean, I would offer that actually, even though we have COVID, I think that is even a stronger argument to say have these local area council meetings and other council meetings, just so we can engage, we can converse, and we can get the residents, seeing what's going on and to actually ask questions. We've had an interesting presentation there from Liz, but let's face it, there is just huge conflicting messages coming from local and national government about what can be done and what can't be done. We look at those numbers of rising infections in September. Yet in August we were all offered £5 off our fish and chips to go to the pub and all this type of stuff. So it is just an incredible confusing message for our residents to say, go to the pub, go and have a meal, and then as it's been mentioned, that there's signs being driven around saying, look out, you may catch the disease. So I do think it's really important that we can do this in a socially distanced way, via these electronic meetings, which have been really good. So I do urge that, we can use these local area committees as the vehicle to inform our residents.
Councillor Sanderson?
Yeah, I agree. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Glenn.
Excellent. Before I move to the next question, Councillor Dungworth, did you have a point of order or likewise to add? You're on silent.
Sorry, it was under your announcements. I'm really sorry, and it's probably remiss of me. I should have told you, but we've also recently had the death of ex-councillor Olga Potts, who was a Blythe Valley councillor for a lot of years.
Yes.
And was still a parish councillor, a town councillor in Blythe at the time of her death. So I would like that recorded as well, please.
Absolutely, Susan, and I'm sure the council pass their best wishes. I've known John on the politics circuit for a while, and to the rest of the family and friends there, we will pass our best wishes to them.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question from Councillor Wallace to the Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources.
Thank you, Chair, and can I add my congratulations to yourself and Councillor Sanderson on your new appointment. I note that Newbiggin Sports Centre has recently had 1.5 million of capital programme funding confirmed. This is great news. Could the Cabinet Member therefore confirm that capital programme resources will be made available for Bedlington to support the development of weather facilities in the town centre?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Yes, you will recall that in February, full council voted to include £500,000 in the capital programme to develop feasibility options for leisure facilities in Bedlington. And this was entirely separate from the multi-million pound Bedlington town centre regeneration plans. Almost immediately after that meeting in February, COVID struck, and that has caused significant problems in the retail sector right across the country, and necessitates a rethink of the Bedlington Town Centre regeneration scheme. Given that situation, the council has engaged Advance Northumberland to develop revised proposals for the regeneration of the town centre, and including a focus on leisure, as I'm sure you're aware. This has been helped by a bid into the Getting Building Fund with £3 million now identified by the North East Local Enterprise Partnership to support the project, subject to confirmation of the final business case. And once the plans are finalised, the project will need to come back to council for formal sign-off. So I think there's a very exciting future for Bedlington. I think the town centre will at long last get the development it needs.
Supplementary, Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Chair, I do. A recent press release from Advance Northumberland on the exciting plans for weather facilities was very quickly downplayed by an unnamed County Council spokesperson. This caused considerable consternation and unrest in the town. Could I have a commitment, please, that everyone at the County Council is fully behind ensuring Bedlington gets the weather facilities that it deserves? Could I also suggest that future press releases from County Council should be clear as to who the spokesperson actually is?
Yeah, well, to take the final point first, I'll sort of pick up that point around the spokesperson. Sometimes, you know, things are responded to in a hurry, and but I generally, as a sort of matter of principle, I think agree with your point that generally it should be a named person. That's not always possible. So I will pick up that point with Anne, the head of comms. In terms of sort of wider commitment to Bedlington, I think it's true that over recent decades, Bedlington has been one of the forgotten towns in Northumberland, or worse still, it's been an ignored town. I think this administration has a commitment to Bedlington. Council officers, local councillors, the cabinet, and Advance Northumberland will all be working really hard to develop some exciting plans for Bedlington, and we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you involved at every stage.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got two hands up. Are these points of orders from Councillor Dale, Councillor Dungworth?
Yes, they are.
I'll go to Councillor Dale. You're on silent again.
Sorry, I had my hand up just to report the sad death of Councillor Audrey Hutchinson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I did mention that because she was long-standing councillor in Tynedale and leader of the Tynedale Council. But sorry, I had my hand up while you were going through that earlier on.
Yeah, no problem. We will note that and again send on our our condolences and best wishes to the family. Councillor Dungworth.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of a problem getting in when you've got to raise your hand.
Yeah, I appreciate the 6
So sorry about that. Mine is a point of order. I want to know if that reply to Councillor Wallace was a political reply or an officer prepared reply, please.
I don't know if that is necessarily something we need to answer at this stage, is it?
It's certainly not.
It's not. I'm advised that's not a point of order, Councillor Dunn.
Okay, then I'll put it in as a freedom of information request. Thank you.
Okay, right. We move on to the next question, which is question 3 from Councillor Hill to the leader.
Thank you. In light of the recent shockingly poor governance within this council, including the failures to give any explanation as to who refused requests for extraordinary meetings of the council and the audit committee and on what constitutional basis, and regarding the failure to provide any answers to questions around the process of the apparent independent investigation or assurances around its integrity. Do you agree that this is totally unacceptable, and how will you rectify the situation?
Mr. Chairman, this councillor knows that I arranged meetings for herself, with me and with the acting chief executive to discuss some of the queries that she had. But I want to move on to the word governance. What do we mean by governance? To me, and looking at the dictionary, governance can mean two things. First of all, around strong decision making and service delivery. Let's just look at what's happened in the county over the last 10 days since the COVID decision was taken to work with the LA7. I can tell you this, that all the leaders and all the county's MPs, for whatever political persuasion they are, have worked absolutely closely together to get the right thing for the right county and the right thing for the county's people. I need to also say that despite all the difficulties, our staff have managed to get on and deliver 2 testing stations and all that involves. We've been brilliant, I think, in the internal and external communications. The hub we know about, the regular member briefings, which I've been keen to ensure happens on a very regular basis along with Kelly. We had an all-member workshop last week in which every single member was given as much time as they wanted to ask any question at all about how we were dealing with the COVID problem. And yet all of this, despite all of that, our services continued to be delivered across the county. So I want to say thank you to Kelly and to all the staff involved in that. Second definition of governance is around effective delivery of projects. Let me remind this councillor about what's actually going on in and around the place she lives. A new leisure centre, a new Maltings Theatre and Centre, improvements to Berwick Port, a multi-million-pound scheme for Berwick Old Bridge, a multi-million-pound HLF-funded refurbishment to a 200-year-old Union Chain Bridge, the largest cross-border, cross-council project of its kind, I'm told, ever. Improvements to Berwick's roads as part of this year's roads programme, which is one of the largest this council has seen for years. And across the county, huge improvements to our schools, a new school building programme, our work with older and vulnerable people, leading the field in our climate change work, investing across the county. So despite everything that COVID has thrown in our way, governance has shown us that we have had strong decision-making, effective project delivery, fantastic staff at every level who don't want to hear continued negativity, who want to start hearing positivity. So thank you to them. Thank you for their patience. Thank you for their hard work.
Supplementary, Councillor Hill.
Well, you answered a number of questions, but none of the ones that I actually asked. And do you not see that skating around the questions, saying, trust me, we're having meetings, mentioning staff, just will not do? You mentioned governance, something that you didn't mention, because I think you probably would have found that even that was a bit cheeky, even from you, to use the word transparency. There's absolutely no transparency. And my supplementary question is, and getting back to what I specifically asked, the fact of the matter is that myself and others have had absolutely no answers to questions we've asked or assurances around process. And do you not see that in a situation where you're not getting any answers to questions around process, where there's no transparency, that people within this council and the public will be suspicious of cover-ups and stitch-ups?
Right, so I think you've been very generous again, Mr. Chairman, in allowing a statement and then a long question supplementary. But I'm quite happy to debate with this member, you know, till 8 o'clock tonight, or even all night, or even tomorrow as well. The point is that I arranged two meetings. Sorry.
Carry on, Chair. We won't have that debate to 8 o'clock, but carry on, Chair.
Yeah, so I arranged two meetings with the acting chief executive and myself to meet this member and others. They had the opportunity to place those questions. They received answers. I allowed a follow-up meeting for that. If they still feel they haven't had the answers that they want, I'm more than happy for them to write to me again. But I will not have any negativity on my watch. I want to see positivity, openness, and getting on, thinking about our staff and thinking about our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'll go to question 4, which is from Councillor Hill to the Leader again.
Thank you. I will be positive and not negative when there's reasons to be positive, but when there's reasons to be very negative and depressed about what's going on, I'm not going to skate around the issues.
Can we get to the question?
My question 4, which I noticed that the Leader is answering himself, not the portfolio holder for housing, but that's fine. Successive governments of all political colours have failed to build enough social housing or adequately replace the properties which have been purchased under right to buy. In particular, this has led to a chronic shortage of 3 or more bedroom properties in certain areas, including Berwick. What progress has this council made since 2017 in addressing the situation and providing hope to the many families in Berwick currently living in extremely cramped conditions?
Leader.
I'm really disappointed I can't answer this, but I have passed this one on to my portfolio holder for Community Services, John Riddle.
Thank you, Chairman. This question actually, as it was written to the leader, so I'm very happy to answer it. Northumberland Council does not hold social housing stock in Berwick, as the former Borough Council was transferred its housing stock to the Housing Association before the Unitary Authority was formed. The right to buy doesn't apply to housing associations in the same way that it would to council tenancies. There is a right to acquire for housing association tenants, but the discounts are less and the incentives are reduced. Data that we hold indicates that there are approximately 1,260 socially rented homes in Berwick, with Benicia being the largest stock holding housing association. It is right to acknowledge that there is a shortage of larger family homes in Berwick area, and we are working very closely with them to address this for the Northumberland residents. We understand that this can be challenging for some families. In terms of new provision, the last social housing to be built in Berwick was completed in 2016. And although there are presently planning consents for 106 affordable homes across 5 development sites in and around the town, the mix of units will vary from scheme to scheme based on viability. We are developing a pipeline to provide new homes, working with MHCLG and the North of Tyne Combined Authorities to access our share of the 24 million of Brownfield Housing Fund that will bring new affordable housing stock into the county. The need to increase the supply of affordable homes is at the heart of our housing strategy, and we have ambitious plans to facilitate up to 1,000 new affordable units across this county. Development sites are being considered across the county on the basis of meeting local needs, and we have recently secured funding from Homes England to support the first phase of the new homes. The initial grant award of £920,000 will support the first true council housing to be built in a number of years. These sites already achieving planning permission at Embleton and Allendale, and a further site in Amble submitted for planning permission. Additionally, the grant will support a programme of up to 20 acquisitions this financial year on a purchase and repair basis, bringing much needed properties back into council ownership at affordable rented homes. The future pipeline of schemes includes potential development sites in Berwick, which are currently undergoing feasibility assessments, and we are working in partnership with developers and registered providers in the sector to bring these proposals forward.
Councillor Hill, do you have a supplementary?
Just to ask, and you touched on it towards the end, John, that you will continue to have at the forefront of your thinking the very chronic shortage in Berwick, and you'll continue to help fight the corner for residents in Berwick who are living in these cramped conditions.
I have said that, yes, and I do acknowledge particularly the larger homes, 4 bedrooms and above, that is where we find the main shortage in Berwick. And if properties come on the market that will satisfy that need, and we have a need for them, but we have a need across other parts of the county for these as well. Each one we looked at on a case-by-case basis, but it's certainly quite feasible that we will acquire properties where there's gaps.
Thank you. That draws an end to questions. So I move to the next item on the agenda, which is item 9, notice of motion, but I think Councillor Dickinson might wish to say something about that.
Thank you, Chair. We are intending to withdraw this motion and place it on the next council agenda when it's had some amendments made to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. So I'll move straight on to, we've done number 10, to number 11, to committee appointments and outside body places. To consider a number of appointments to committees and outside body places as a result of recent changes, including the appointment of the chair of the Facts and Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutinies Committees. These will be circulated in due course in terms of full appointments, which we will put in the week, more than likely. And if any group leaders wish to communicate any information on that, can they do so ASAP if they have any changes? But for now, we need as a council to agree that Councillor Mark Swinburne becomes the chair of the Family Children Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, that Councillor John Bainan becomes the chair of the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and that on the Facts Committee, that Julia Parkin is replaced by Lynn Horton of the NASUWT. Are we okay to agree to all of those three changes? I'm taking that as a yes. I'm not seeing any dissent to that, so I will take that we have approved that here. Councillor Dungworth, beg your pardon.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Dixon has been trying to raise his hand.
I do beg your pardon. Councillor Dickinson.
So could you take Councillor Dickinson, please? Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Chair, and indulge me for a moment if you would. I won't get the new leader any more angry than he was before, because I don't want him to be the shortest lived leader. In relation to communication around the committee places, can I have assurance from the new leader that we're going to go back to the approval mechanism of leaders agreeing things rather than just tossing the constitution to one side? And the second point would be, now that we have a equalities champion within the cabinet, I'm assuming that some of these positions may be reviewed to include more women.
Councillor Sanderson.
Well, I thank him for the question. I wasn't actually angry at all. It's just I just feel I need to make my point sometimes with some councillors. I thank you for your question. Can I say to you that we will look at this in detail, Councillor Dickinson, and come back to you on that.
Yeah. And Councillor Dungworth, did you still have a point to raise?
Yes, I did. Thank you. What Scott was also going to tell you was that we will let Democratic Services know of any changes to our committee membership, if we have any, as you would do normally at this time of year. And I want to reinforce Councillor Dickinson's remarks, and let's see a few less grab caps and a few more dynamic women in the team, please.
Duly noted, Councillor Dungworth, and I will email you in respect of my position as business chair in the week as well, and to other group leaders and non-aligned councillors. Thank you. Councillor Hill, did you have your hand up as well?
Thank you, Chair. I've had a couple of messages from members of the public who had tuned in to hear the motion that's been withdrawn. Out of respect for them who've sat through the meeting, can we have further explanation? Was there any legal advice given to say why we couldn't discuss this motion? By whom? Did they have any interests at all?
If you wish to answer, Councillor Liam, beg your pardon.
All I can say, Chairman, is the motion is now withdrawn, the item is closed, and you're now on item 11. So
okay.
I have no comments.
Sorry, we can't hear.
Do you wish to speak up?
Sorry, can you hear me now, Councillor Dungworth?
Yeah, just.
Apologies, I will try and, without shouting, I'll try and speak as loud as I possibly can. All I was saying was that the motion has been withdrawn, and the item has been closed. We have moved on to item 11, so therefore it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment in relation to that particular item.
Absolutely. I think that you are probably going to hear about this in due course, probably at our next meeting. It will no doubt be discussed in more detail. And I'm just going to ask Councillor Dickinson, you have your hand up. Can I ask what's in relation to?
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to offer an explanation, but you've moved on.
Okay, fine. Well, that's fine.
Sorry, Chair, I just need a bit of clarification. You said something about you'd give your decision and circulate members. I'm not assuming you have a decision to make on group's recommendations for committee membership?
I certainly didn't. If you may have misheard me, or I may have
Right, that's fine.
I don't believe I've said that.
I'm
Okay.
a bit paranoid at the moment, as I'm sure you appreciate, but I might have misheard it.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Dale, your final, you got a hand up for a point of order or such like, and because I want to move progress. You're on mute again, Councillor Dale.
Somebody keeps on doing the other thing to me. Could I just ask you that as we're going through difficult times and we'll need regular updates, if all members could have at least a weekly update online. There are some of us who are not actually on any committees apart from the area committees. And, you know, we all are representatives of people. I just think
Councillor Dale, the leader, I think, wants to come in here.
Absolutely great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just want to give the assurance that I would like to go on as we've begun and have regular briefings. What I would actually quite like is if members could come back to me or to Kelly and say, these are very good, but could we have them in a slightly different format, or do you want it in bullet points, or, you know, but it's very much my wish that we do that. And actually I think we need to see how things are in a week or 10 days, and might be necessary to have another all-member briefing if that's what, you know, a workshop session with all members, if that's something that members would like. Would be more than happy to look at that if that is the general consensus. But I think we should see how we are a little bit farther down the road, maybe in a week or 10 days. Thank you.
I'm being extremely generous again. Councillor Dungworth, you got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like the leader to consider maybe reinstating monthly council meetings during this period. You know, we're going to be in isolation effectively as members for the foreseeable future. And I just think that is a good way both of informing members of what's going on, but also of informing the general public.
Councillor Dungworth, I'm going to take this one myself. I'm the new business chair. Can I invite you to send me an email about that at your leisure?
I will do.
Thank you. Okay, on that, I will close the meeting. That's all the items. Thank you very much for your sorry, I'm just having some speaking next to me. I believe we've covered all appointments. So in that respect, I will close the meeting and thank everyone for their patience in this era of Zoom meetings. Thank you very much. And I will end.